Well, hello everyone. I'm your host, Nira Menon, for this video event entitled Discover the Secrets to Happiness, where I have 21 amazing experts share simple ways of how to be happy now. Today's interview is with Gail Brenner. Gail has been there, done that, and so is truly able to relate her experience in a way that will help us all start to take control of these minds we have that imagine so many thoughts that ultimately don't serve us. Today's interview is with Gail Brennan, PhD, who is a clinical psychologist and blogger with over 20 years of experience offering psychotherapy. Now, let's join Gail and listen to what she's got to say on the subject of happiness.
What you're going to love about Gail is that she will give you the understanding of what really stands in the way of your true happiness, and that in itself will liberate you and put you on the path of happiness. So welcome, Gail. And I'd like to kick off with, I've often heard it say, we can simply choose to be happy now, but it's not that simple, is it? So why can't I just choose to be happy now and just stick to it? What's the issue that what's the challenge most people have?
Well, in your question, there are actually two questions. One is, how do we choose to be happy? And the second is, how do we stick to that? Because in the moment is when we can choose to be happy. And in the next moment and in the next moment. So when we make that choice consistently over and over, then the result ends up being a happy life. But it's really important to recognize that the choice is only made in every moment. And the choice is a difficult one when you're not aware and when you're not used to it. But once you realize how it is in the moment that you're making yourself unhappy, you can begin to make choices that move you in the direction of happiness.
Okay, and so Um, uh, when you say in the moment, are you saying that as I'm sitting here with you, I could decide that I'm going to be unhappy or happy? But that
Yes.
actually means that you've got to be quite awake or totally aware of doing. And I mean, are most people at that point? How can you
Well, it takes
start?
awareness. It takes awareness, that's the truth. And, being totally awake, I don't really worry about that because, again, it's really about the moment. And if you are totally awake, you're totally awake in the moment.
Sure.
So it's about understanding. And it puts a lot of pressure on people, like, how would I ever get there? So that's not really that
Okay.
useful. So what's more, I think, useful for people is to really recognize what am I thinking and what am I feeling that's obscuring the happiness that's possible. Because happiness is our natural state. It's not
Yes.
something we make happen that's not here already. It's about clearing the clouds away so that we can discover that it's possible to be happy or peaceful in any moment. And just to also clarify, when we use the word happiness, to me, it doesn't mean like smile on your face, giddy, that feeling of happiness, which is a lovely feeling, but it's not a constant feeling. But an interchangeable word for the happiness that I think we're speaking about here
Yes.
is peace. So,
Totally.
so how can I feel peace in the moment? How can I not be suffering? How can I not be agitated and put into turmoil by the things going on around me? These are the questions that we're asking.
Okay. So how would I start? How would I start to do that? What would your approach
Okay.
be?
The first starting point is to realize that you're not happy. Because when you're happy, there's no problem, there's nothing to talk about, you're at peace, you're
Yes.
enjoying life, it's flowing, and you are flowing with life, you're flowing as life, so there's no problem there.
Okay.
But let's say somebody feels a sense of low self-esteem or being self-critical. And I'm actually a licensed psychologist. I work with people all the time
Sure.
who come in and say, oh, I feel worthless, I feel bad about myself.
Yes.
So that's a starting point. But what I want to know is, in the moment, what are the thoughts that are running through that person's mind? So
Okay.
I'm no good, I'm stupid, I should have done that differently. Those are the kinds of thoughts that if you add them up together, that's what we call low self-esteem. So what's happening in that moment is there are thoughts running through the person's mind, and probably habitual thoughts. It's a
Yes.
pattern that's run through many times before, many times before. And the person is attaching to those thoughts and giving them energy and attention and thinking them and making them important and serious. And when the attention just is consumed in that kind of thinking, of course it's understandable that that would not be a happy moment.
Okay. So what you're actually saying is that it's what's thinking that's actually causing you to feel unhappy. So how would you start in a small way to start to tune into that? Would you say apply it to every situation, or I can't imagine when you're in the midst of work that something at work's making you unhappy, but if is there a small way you could start in so that you actually
Yes,
begin to build that practice? Yeah.
sure. And I also want to clarify, it's not just thoughts, it's so we didn't get to that yet, but if you attach to a feeling, just
Yes.
the way that you might attach, and when I say attach, I mean put your attention on and make it really important in your reality. If you do that to feelings also that are difficult feelings like sadness or frustration, then the same thing is the result. You have an unhappy moment. So it's good to know how we make ourselves unhappy by attaching to unhappy thoughts and unhappy feelings. But
Okay.
to answer your question, the way to start is because, yes, you're right, these patterns are very strong in people and they've been running for a long time. And to think, well, how am I supposed to wake up in the middle of this? I
Yes.
totally understand that that sounds very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So the way to start is to take a time of day, maybe like the end of the day is a good time, like before you go to bed,
Okay.
and you think through the things that have happened over the day. And you look at, where did I get stuck? What triggered me? Where did I feel off or stressed or out of sorts or by an emotion? And then you really analyze, you take out a laser and your very direct awareness, and you look at what was happening in that moment. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? And what were you doing with those thoughts and feelings? And begin to reflect after the fact, so that you can learn to become an expert in the ways that you make yourself unhappy. And the
Gotcha.
more you do that, you begin to raise your awareness. You begin to start a momentum that is different than the momentum of these conditioned habits. It's a momentum of freedom and of
Right.
well-being and of ease. As that momentum gets going by being aware after the fact, maybe you might say 5 times a day, I'm going to look at, I'm going to set the alarm on my watch and I'm going to stop and I'm just going to be aware of what's happening. The more that you promote that in your own day-to-day life, the more that feeds this possibility of being free from these habits.
Right. Right. Okay. I can see what you're saying there. So you're saying you're essentially the reason you're feeling the way you're feeling is not only your thinking, but you're actually paying attention to how you're actually giving focus on the way you're feeling, right?
That's
So you're essentially, because you're focused on, say, a sad feeling, you just continue to feel sad. So,
yes.
okay, so I've realized that I'm, if you like, constantly thinking I'm not good enough. So how do I begin to flip that so I feel better? So if that was my thinking first thing as I got out of bed
Yeah.
every morning.
Well, there are lots of ways to approach that, and certainly one would be to question that thought. So that's a thought: I don't feel good enough, or there's something wrong with me, or I'm lacking something. And so you investigate that thought to say, is that really true? And
Okay.
also to acknowledge. And then sometimes you might say, well, it does feel true. And then the next question would be, does that thought serve? Does it serve my happiness? Does it serve my well-being? Does it serve other people?
Yes.
So whether it's true or not, and ultimately you'll find that it isn't true, but even if you if you're just recognizing the fact that this is a thought that brings unhappiness to your life, it's a thought that deserves investigation, because the more you attach to it, the more that you will be unhappy.
Sure. So, say I was feeling not good enough because all my life maybe I didn't feel I did well academically, and therefore anything that I do that hasn't come out perfectly, I might think actually that's not good enough. But so what you're saying is, okay, so I realize where that thoughts come from. So what you're actually saying is that you have to then make a decision. Well, actually, that's not
That's
helping.
exactly.
That's
It's
not.
about where you put your attention. So
Yeah.
if you, sorry for interrupting, but if you
Sure.
make a decision
Mhm.
that, and this is what happened in my own experience. I said, I'm finished with suffering. I knew that it was possible
Right.
to end suffering, and I wanted to figure out how to do it. So I was willing to do anything. And so when I recognized, oh, I'm thinking a thought that couldn't possibly make me happy, I just began developing no interest in that thought anymore.
Gotcha.
So it didn't matter to me if the thought was true or not. That became irrelevant. What became the relevant barometer for me is, does this support my happiness and well-being or not? And if it didn't, I was more than willing to throw it out.
Oh, okay. So if I was to draw an analogy, it would be, well, actually that person's not being very nice to me, so I'm not going to speak to them anymore. So you don't actually give that thought any credence whatsoever.
It's about being totally kind to yourself. And you
Yes.
think there's no end to how kind you can be to yourself.
Sure.
And when you think harsh thoughts and you believe them, and it guides your decisions and it separates you from other people, and
Yes.
you feel bad about it, I mean, that's, you can say, I don't want to live like that.
Sure.
And
Sure.
you make a decision to let that go.
Yeah, sure. And the interesting thing about yourself, Gail, is that you've actually experienced all this stuff, isn't it? I love that story about one day when you got out of bed, you suddenly recognized your habitual thinking as you got out of bed. Maybe you could tell us, a bit more about that. That.
Sure. Um, well, it was a process. I mean, certainly there were big moments
Yeah.
where I had some insights and
Yes.
realizations, but it was also a process because the mind is very conditioned. The patterns are very strong.
Yes.
They're lodged in the body. There's also this physical component to a lot of these emotions and patterns that we carry. And so it takes a while for that stuff to unwind. But for myself, as soon as I realized what was possible, I had a real fire for it, and
Yes.
nothing was going to stop me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's an amazing story because that's come from true experience.
Yes.
So yes, loved that completely. Okay,
So
so
I speak from, I've been there.
yes,
So somebody says, "Oh, I had low self-esteem. I had low self-esteem. I
sure.
worried about everything. You know, there was a lot of trying to figure out where I stood socially, and am I
Sure.
accepted, and am I not, a
Yes.
lot, all the stuff that happens to
Yeah.
all people
Yeah,
happens
and
to
yeah,
you too.
absolutely. And that's what I really loved about you is that it's kind of just reading all the stuff that I can really relate to it, and I'm sure lots of people are going to be absolutely able to relate to it because it really has been like true heartfelt experience. Okay, so unfortunately, we've come to the end, and here's the deal. I know you've got something very special for everyone, so if you could tell us about that, and more importantly, also, is where can everyone find you online, Twitter, Facebook?
Sure. Okay. Well, I write a blog called aflourishinglife.com, and I'll just spell it. It's aflourishinglife.com, aflourishinglife.com. And it's a blog that I've written for the past approximately 3.5 years,
Yeah.
where I write about happiness and the things that get in the way of happiness, and freedom, and understanding our true nature, and how to discover that and live that in your own experience. So if you go there and you go to the archive, there's just, probably, I don't know how many hundreds of articles at this
Yes.
point, that I've, because I love to write about this topic. I mean, it's my favorite topic. And there are also, some of the more popular articles, quite interesting discussions in the comments sections where people write in with their own experience or questions that they have. And so that's been a very rich experience as well, to respond to people's comments, which I really love to do.
Yeah, that's
So
fantastic.
that's on my blog, as well as some guided audio meditations that I've recorded, and they're available there for free. So that's there too. On Twitter, I'm at A Flourishing Life, but without the E at the end. So it looks like A Flourishing Life, but it's A Flourishing Life.
Yes.
And then I have a Facebook page also for Flourishing Life, where I can be found. And I also, there's a way on my site to find my email, so you can just send me an email if you'd like to get in touch with me as well.
Sure.
And I work with people individually, so there's some information about that on my site also.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do have a gift to offer the people who are listening here. It's an ebook that I wrote entitled Tending Your Garden of Everyday Joy, 30 Reflections for a Flourishing Life. And it's very simple, just 30 sort of reminders and simple practices that you can do every day to bring more joy and more happiness into your life. Yeah. And my orientation is not about a momentary improvement, but I'm really interested in everlasting happiness, in the happiness that stays and that's here and that's undisturbed by anything that might happen in it. So those are some of the things that I speak about in that the ebook, and also I write about that in my blog as well. But that's my interest in people being freed from suffering, because there's so much suffering in the world. And it's also possible to know who you are and know that you can be free from it. So that's my message, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, it's a fantastic ebook. You have to get it. Okay, so Gail, I want to say thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful. Yep, it's good to learn that you actually do have a choice on how to be happy, that you want to be happy now, you can, and be there. So guys, you have the recipe to happiness from Gail. Just go for it. Happy feels good, and who knows what your true potential is going to be as a result. This is Nira Menon of Only Happiness Counts. Now make sure you re-listen to this video here. There's lots of fantastic information here, and look out for the next one tomorrow, but make it your absolute top priority to listen to this one and the next one. So Gail, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be here with you.